As the sun began to set over the San Francisco skyline, three young entrepreneurs sat nervously in their small apartment, poring over their laptops. They had just launched a website that allowed people to rent out their spare rooms to travelers, and the response had been overwhelming. As they watched their inbox fill with booking requests, they couldn't help but wonder, had they stumbled upon the next big thing? Or were they about to be sued into oblivion by the hotel industry? Little did they know, the story of Airbnb was just beginning, and it would be a wild ride filled with twists, turns, and unexpected challenges. It was 2008, and Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia were struggling to pay rent for their San Francisco apartment because their roommate Nathan Blecharczyk is moving out due to rent increment. There will be a vacant room, and they need to figure out a way to make up the rent. With a design conference in town, all the hotel rooms were sold out, leaving them with an idea. They decided to turn their apartment into a makeshift bed and breakfast and named it Airbed and Breakfast. They could not imagine this simple idea would eventually disrupt the entire hospitality industry. After getting the idea, the two did not overthink it. They bought 3 air mattresses, registered Airbed and Breakfast, and that's how they officially started. Unexpectedly, all 3 air mattresses were sold out. Their first 3 customers were a lady from Boston and 2 gentlemen from India and Utah. They chose Airbnb because it was cheap. Brian charged them $80 per night, which was at least $100 cheaper than the average hotel rate at the time. The first obstacle came up as quick as they start. After the designer conference end, nobody used their services, so Brian and Joe started to target more potential customers in various conferences. However, it does not solve the root problem. Whenever a conference ends, the orders will be plummet, and the company still cannot survive by just making hundreds of dollars a month. Brian and Joe started to ask themselves why they had to use an air mattress instead of a real bed, and why they had to target conference attendees instead of ordinary travelers. The answer is, they do not have to. As a result, Brian and Joe made the most important and final transformation to their business. Number 1. Not only targeting the conference attendees, but also the general traveler, mainly the latter. Number 2. Using real bed instead of air mattress. Meanwhile, because of the increasing number of orders, they realized that they need a bigger and dynamic team. For example, they were both graduated from design major and had no sense about IT. They did not even have a formal website for their business, needless to mention online payment system. When the potential customers want to use their services, they must write a check and give it to Brian in person, which looks like a fraud. At this moment, they thought of someone. Remember the roommate moved out because of rent increment? Yes, his name is Nathan Blecharczyk, and he is a genuine IT expert graduated from Harvard University, who became the co-founder of Airbnb later on. He established the initial online payment function for Brian and Joe. The business model for Airbnb works like a bridge. It connects the landlords and tenants, in another word, host and customers. If they want more customers to use their services, then they needed to have more hosts first. But without customers, they did not have money to pay the hosts. Thus, the next step is to find an angel investor. Brian sent his business plan to over 50 angel investors, but none of them was interested in their business model. Although he never gave up, the reality was that they were out of money already. The most urgent thing was to get some quick money. Brian and Joe got an idea. The US election was coming up soon, and it was about a month or 2 away. The company's name was Airbed and Breakfast. Brian thought, well, we've done the beds part. How about we do the breakfast part now? How about we create a presidentially themed breakfast cereal? They were going to create Obama Hope in every bowl cereal. They were also going to create Captain McCain's, a Maverick in every bite cereal. That was the other candidate for president by the time. Cereal is never an expensive product unless it is a limited edition collector's item. They printed 1,000 cardboard boxes from Friend's store and put a little unique number from 1 to 1,000 on every box to make it seem very special. And they went to supermarket to buy 1,000 bag cereal, which was only $1 per bag. They brought those home, of course by multiple times, where they then would have to assemble the boxes because their cardboard was flat. They took the cereal out of the original box, put it in the new cardboard box they printed. Then they mailed 100 boxes to news reporters. The reporters were so curious and wanted to know more because in the lead up to the election, everyone was covering the election. Therefore, Airbnb were on Good Morning America and CNN. That day they were on CNN. It became the #1 political-related video. They were selling a $40 box of cereal every minute until sold out. They sold $30,000 worth of cereal in that week. That was even more money than they had made all year in the core business. Because it was hard to find an angel investor, on the November of 2008, Airbnb started to consider applying for Y Combinator Incubator. Y Combinator was different from many angel investors in that they gave relatively small amounts of money. Each investment was only $85,000 in exchange for about 15% of the company's share with a lower threshold of admission. A few weeks later, they got an interview opportunity from Y Combinator, YC, and the interviewer was Paul Graham, YC's founding CEO. Paul was a well-known startup guru in Silicon Valley. The course of the interview was tough. Paul couldn't understand why someone would want to live in someone else's house, and why someone would allow strangers to sleep in their own bed. When they were walking out, Joe took out a box of Obama oats and gave it to Paul. Paul thought that was a gift. Joe said they made this. Paul was curious about this and invited them back to the office to explain why and how they made the box of cereal. On the way back home, they got a phone call from Paul. "Hi guys, I wanted to tell you that you've been accepted." After so many years, Paul revealed why he let them in. He said, "Actually, I really don't like the idea at all. I think it's kind of weird. But the cereal story tells me is that these guys can make things happen." And he said, "We're in a recession right now, and I want founders in my program who are like cockroaches. I want founders that you can't kill and that are resourceful, and they keep coming back for more. I think they are the one." YC invested $20,000 and got a 6% share, which brought YC more than $100 million in returns 15 years later. Airbnb quickly gained traction, with people all over the world opting for a more affordable and authentic travel experience. However, the company faced numerous controversies along the way. Neighborhoods were worried about the influx of tourists, and hotels accused Airbnb of not paying taxes and not following safety regulations. Thus, cities around the world imposed strict regulations on Airbnb and its users. Despite these challenges, Airbnb continued to grow, expanding to new cities and countries and reaching a valuation of over $31 billion by 2016. The company faced its crisis when a deadly shooting occurred at an Airbnb property in California in 2017. The incident brought attention to Airbnb's lack of safety regulations and sparked outrage among the public. In response, Airbnb stepped up its efforts to improve safety and transparency. It introduced a host of new measures, including mandatory verification of identities, background checks, and a 24/7 support line. The company also worked with law enforcement and safety experts to develop new safety protocols and to make sure that every property on its platform met safety standards. However, the company was about to face its biggest challenge yet. In 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic hit, and the entire travel industry was thrown into chaos. With travel restrictions and a massive drop in demand, Airbnb was forced to lay off a significant portion of its workforce and reduce its marketing expenses. It began to explore new ways to adapt to the changing travel landscape. As the pandemic continued, Airbnb turned its attention to the global recovery effort, offering free or discounted housing to healthcare workers, first responders, and essential workers. The company also shifted its focus to domestic travel, encouraging people to explore their own communities and support local businesses. As the world begins to emerge from the pandemic, Airbnb is faced with a new set of challenges. The company is facing increasing competition from new home-sharing platforms like Vrbo and HomeAway, and the hotel industry is ramping up its efforts to stop its growth. Just as it seemed that all hope was lost, the management team came up with a bold plan. They decided to expand their services to include a new type of travel experience, space tourism. The idea was to offer customers the chance to stay in space stations orbiting the Earth. providing an experience unlike any other. The plan was risky, but it paid off. Airbnb managed to secure a partnership with SpaceX, which was planning to launch its first commercial spaceflight in the coming years. With the help of SpaceX, Airbnb was able to offer its customers the chance to book a stay on the International Space Station, with prices starting at $10 million per night. The response was overwhelming. People from all over the world were eager to book a stay in space, and Airbnb's revenue soared. The company quickly became the go-to platform for space travel, and its profits surpassed even the wildest expectations of its management team. As the sun set on San Francisco, the three entrepreneurs who had started it all looked out over the city with a sense of satisfaction. They had faced countless challenges and had overcome them all. And as they watched their company take to the stars, they knew that the future of Airbnb will be brilliant. If you like success stories, please subscribe, smash a like, and turn on the notification. Your support will be my motivation. Thank you, and I will see you in the next video.